Elwha watershed is a rich rainforest. It's dripping in precipitation most of the year with huge sword ferns and moss all over the trees.
When I bring people here, I see something click in people's heads that brings joy and understanding. It can't be taught, it's something that has to be felt.
We decided this is where we want to live, this is where we want to die. When you're in it, it's primordial, primeval.
You enter into this magical porthole into this world of cedars and firs and salal and huckleberry.
Just the peacefulness, the tranquility, the richness. Whenever I come back home, I just take a deep breath and a sigh of relief that I'm back in my place, because it's where I belong and I want to protect it as much as I can.
The damming of the river prevented the anadromous fish from getting upstream, so that was completely blocked for 100 years. So the whole watershed is now coming back to life. The river is like the bloodstream of the whole organ that is the biosphere, is the natural wonder that is the Elwha. And so it has to have its nutrients in it. It has to be rich. It has to have the organic matter that it brings in, that the salmon bring in from the ocean. And that does build the entire natural world here.
Seeing their dam come down, seeing the salmon return, it's kind of a miracle. There's a historic moment right here, right now, with what's happening in breaching that dam.
What we're dealing with is a death by 1,000 cuts. So 100 acres here, 100 acres there, no big deal. When you start adding these things up and you see unprecedented forest loss. So protecting these blocks of forest is a starting point.
It came to our attention about 1.5 years ago that there was going to be some logging occurring very close to the river, over 100 acres, and we tried to stop it. So legacy forest is a forest that was never logged by machine. So it may have been logged by hand equipment back around World War II.
There's nothing wrong with being from the timber community. Everybody needs a job. At what cost? At what cost?
Logging is certainly a part of this community, and it's something that is going to continue. So what we're advocating for is not to halt all logging. We are advocating for the protection of these last remaining critical forests in critical locations and that are structurally complex and biodiverse.
The importance of forest on a global scale is through a whole bunch of different benefits. They're life-giving ecosystems. The Pacific Northwest is blessed with some of the most important temperate rainforests on the planet. And not only do they have a lot of those temperate rainforests, but the temperate rainforests we have in this region, and includes the Elwha watershed where we're standing today, are some of the most carbon-dense forests on the planet. And the other value that we get from these temperate rainforests is the amount of carbon that they have accumulated over decades and centuries of just being a forest. So the more the carbon that they pull out of the atmosphere, the more carbon that's in the forest and not in the atmosphere. So they're excellent natural climate solutions, and the mature and old growth forests do it much better than a logged forest and a plantation, because they represent the accumulation of carbon in the big trees, in the soils, in the surrounding vegetation over millennia.
It doesn't make sense to essentially clear cut a large tract of forest literally 200 feet away from where we've invested hundreds of millions of dollars to remove a dam for salmon recovery. We know that forestry practices have an impact in the watershed on the river.
These systems are all connected together. When we start severing the linkages in the food web, the system starts to unravel and collapse. So when we clear cut a rainforest like this in the Elwha, if it's on steep slopes, a lot of that soil is going to wind up in the creeks, killing salmon. You're going to release most of the carbon that's been stored in these big trees and in the soils to an extent, is going to wind up in the atmosphere, contributing to the problem rather than the solution. And you're going to destroy a lot of really important wildlife habitat.
The ocean right outside the mouth of the Elwha River is populated by two types of orcas. And it's a sort of a natural laboratory right under our noses. There's nowhere else in the world that we have two completely different types of orcas in a populated area that are here frequently. The Elwha historically grew huge Chinook salmon, sometimes 100-pound Elwha hogs, they used to call them. And those were part of the essential food base for the southern resident orcas. They're down to 74 at the last count. They're severely endangered. They need to have bountiful supplies of salmon year-round. That's what they need. That's what they evolved to depend upon over thousands of years. And only in the last 150 or so years, humans have cut back the number of salmon out there. The populations have been decimated. There are reverberating effects. When you tear down a forest on the side of the mountain, then that can impact the water, and that impacts the salmon, and that impacts the orcas.
Began to organize as a community and formed the Elwha Legacy Forest Coalition to raise awareness. We held community walks, we held a rally, we brought together a lot of people in the community. We went to the city council, who sent a letter asking the Department of Natural Resources to pause this harvest, to hear our concerns about the loss of this forest and what it would mean for our community.
It is our responsibility to protect the environment based on treaty obligations between tribes and the federal government. We need to be bold as leaders, and we need to tell DNR what we want our community to look like, not DNR to tell us what they can and can't do.
It's important to City Council that we do everything in our power to protect the watershed. And I can tell you City Council has taken no less than 5 separate unanimous decisions to protect the watershed. It provides the water supply for our entire community and beyond. It provides water for over 20,000 residents. It provides water for over 700 different businesses in our community.
To be protected in addition to...
We come together and we stand for what we know is right, to protect the forest, to protect the salmon, not for us, but for the generations to come.
And unfortunately, DNR did not listen. DNR went ahead and proceeded with the sale of this forest and the logging. And honestly, the logging really occurred on an expedited basis, quite likely because of the significant community opposition. We just climbed up the hillside. We're at the edge of the Elwha clear cut, the spot where used to be a incredible forest. And this is the first time I've set foot on this land since it has been decimated by logging practices that do not respect the complex ecosystem that is a forest, the community of trees that lived here and the life that it supported. And this is what we have now. Stumps, big slash piles, the homes of all the animals that were here. Destroyed. Losing some of these forests that you have developed an intimate relationship with is like losing a member of a family. It's like losing a close friend. We cannot continue to extract limitlessly, acting like there is no end, that we can just destroy the natural world, and that the natural world and nature will keep giving back to us. And we all have a responsibility, a sacred responsibility, a moral responsibility, an ethical responsibility to ensure that we are caring for and protecting the earth for this generation and for future generations.
This is our home. What do you do when somebody attacks, is destroying your home?
And so we really then at that point resolved that the next time a forest came up that was going to be on the chopping block in the Elwha River watershed, we were going to take every action we possibly could to stop that from occurring. court, and we did something that doesn't happen very often. We filed a motion to try to stop the auction, to try to stop the sale of the forest to the timber company.
May 2nd, 2020.
We discovered that the Department of Natural Resources had not done its homework, had not done its work. Under the law, it is required to take what's called a hard look at the environmental impacts of a timber harvest. And when we delved into what they had studied, we realized that there were a lot of critical things that they had simply not studied or considered at all. And we asked the court to halt the auction. Unfortunately, the court did not do so, and it's a hard burden to get there. The problem with that is that that means that while our case is going on, the logging could occur. It could start any day.
Thank you all for joining us today. It is a very exciting day.
We're really excited to have Dave Upthegrove in Port Angeles today, as you know, who's running for the Public Lands Commissioner. Also, I have a big announcement. I just found out about an hour ago that the power plant timber sale is canceled. I think it gives a lot of hope. You know, when we started this, it seemed like an almost impossible task, and as it kept going further and further and further towards the chopping block, it seemed more impossible at points. But then we continued to have hope that we would reach this day where we could celebrate the protection of this very special place.
This is what we protect. This is what we protect. All those birds and this pristine lands and waters that we live in. This is what we protect.
Our vision is that we will continue to grow this movement of people recognizing that we do have an imbalance with too much extraction and not enough restoration, not enough of a sense of responsibility to the natural world, and that creates an imbalance.
The most important thing about this whole process has been the importance of community advocacy. This wasn't just working on the litigation papers, it was working with Earth Law Center, working with the Center for Whale Research, and working with everyone who is involved in the Washington community who wanted to speak on behalf of the Elwha Forest.
So many members of our community have become engaged in this issue and have done all the different parts to make this happen, taking photographs, video, handing out flyers, raising awareness. And we've been speaking at public meetings, I've been litigating, drafting briefs, going to court, making phone calls, and all of that coming together has not only saved this forest and gotten it off the chopping block, but it's brought us together closer as a community to grow our community of people who care about these forests and care about the river.
I think our responsibility as humans is to first develop a spiritual respect and appreciation and really a reverence for the forest, for the mountainside, for the natural processes, all the wonders that we behold out here. We need to really step back and view that as sacred. Once we can make that shift, then the policies will follow, the practices, the activities will follow to take care of it, to live with it. And we need to appreciate nature as much as we appreciate ourselves.